Now we're ready to begin the process of reassembling the movement. I put the movement base plate in the movement holder here so that we can work on it. I've got it facing with the back side of it up, dial side facing down, because the first thing we're going to put in is the mainspring barrel, which goes into this place right here. Now before we can put the mainspring barrel in, we need to oil the barrel. We need to oil the barrel arbor, that is. We need to put a little bit of oil around this side here, and then on the other side as well, the two bearings basically for the arbor, so that as it rotates it will have some lubrication. The oil we're going to use for this is the HP 1300 oil from Mobius, and I've got a little bit of it. I don't know if it shows up on the camera here, but there's a little tiny bit of it in my oil cup here. You don't want to put very much at a time in your oil cups because the stuff goes bad over time, and you need only teeny little drops of it. We're going to use this oiler, which is, these oilers are thin metal wires with a flattened end. There we go, now it's in focus. Attached to a plastic handle, and there's 4 different sizes of them. So you choose the size based on how much oil you want to put on a particular area of the watch. To apply the oil, I'm going to open up the lid of the oiler, and I'm going to take just a teeny little amount of oil on the tip of the oiler, and I'm going to apply a little bit of oil around that pivot. And this is kind of hard for me to see. It's got some on the barrel and stuff. This is hard for me to do looking at the camera screen. I'm going to have to do this looking through an eye loop. So I have the barrel lubricated now, and what I did is I just put a little bit of oil around the top and bottom pivots of the arbor, and now I'm ready to put it into the movement. Now the oil that I use for this is the HP 1300 Mobius oil, and this is a little bit heavier oil used for parts that move at low speeds but have high torque applied to them, like from the mainspring barrel. For parts like in some of the escapement parts that move at higher speeds, we'll use a thinner oil. Now this is going to go into the movement base plate in that big round hole there, and we're putting this in with the part of the arbor that has the screw threads in it goes on top, because that's where the screw that holds the barrel in place goes. So we're just going to drop this in here. I need to make sure it goes into the hole on the bottom of the movement. Now the next thing we're going to do is we need to install the barrel bridge, which goes across the top of the barrel and holds it in place. And that is this part right here. And that goes right here on the top of the barrel. There's a hole in the barrel bridge that the top of the arbor goes into. And we can see it lines up with the edges of the movement plate too. And this has to be pushed down over a couple of pegs that stick up also. So you can use your fingers or the tweezers to do that. Make sure it pushes down all the way. Let's take a look at it here and see that everything is correct. Looking good. Looking good. Yeah, no, that's correct. I thought it was sticking up a little bit on the side, but it's not. That gap is intentional. Okay. So now that the barrel bridge is in place, there's a couple parts that go on top of it. The next thing that has to go in is the click spring, and it goes into this little slot right here. Because right there's where the click goes, and then the spring goes into this little spot here, and it's kind of a candy cane shaped spring. One end of it goes into this little spot right here, and then the rest of it curves around like this and into the area where the click sits. And this I may have to take off camera and look through a magnifier to see what I'm doing, but I'm going to try to do it under the camera first. Yeah, I think I'm going to have to do this under a magnifier. I'll be right back. Okay, I got it in now. This was kind of a difficult thing to get in. It took 2 hands to do it, one hand with tweezers and the other with my fingers just holding it in place. But I do have it back in there. where it should be. So the next thing we're going to do now is add the gear that goes on top of the barrel, which is the winding gear. It's when you wind the watch, that gear on top of the barrel turns the arbor to wind the spring inside. Okay, here's our gear that we're going to put in, and this has a square hole in the top, and that has to go over the square arbor. Also, notice that there's an indentation at the top. That's where the screw sinks in. The bottom of it doesn't have that indentation, so you need to make sure that you put it on correctly. In this, the last time I put this on, I had to use a magnifier and look at it off camera, and I'm going to have to do that again this time, I think. It was hard for me to get the square on the gear aligned with the square top of the arbor while looking at it through the camera. Because as I do this, I'm looking at my my digital camera's viewing screen, which isn't very large, so it's hard to see real small details. That actually might be it right there. Nope, not quite. Yeah, I'm going to have to look this off camera. I'll be right back. Okay, I've got it on and properly aligned. Next thing is to put on the retaining screw for it. We'll drop that in there with the tweezers. And then I'll take the screwdriver and tighten it down. I'm going to have to hold the gear in place while I tighten the screw down, because the gear wants to turn with the screw. Okay, now the next thing we need to put in is the crown wheel. And this is the crown wheel. And it goes over here next to the... Okay, got that in place. Now this should have a little drop of oil put on its spindle too. And we're going to use the HP 1300 again, just like we did for the barrel arbor, because this is a low speed gear, so it doesn't need a lot of oil. And I've oiled that. Now there's one more part that goes in here with this before we put the screw on that holds the crown wheel in place. There's this teeny little washer right here that drops in there as well. Oh, I got that right in there on camera. Perfect. Actually, I think it is sticking up just a little bit on one side. And now we can put in the screw that holds that in place. There we go. I put the washer and the screw in. Now remember the click wheel screw, when we took this apart, I mentioned that this... Well, not the click wheel, the crown wheel screw. When I took this apart, I mentioned that this screw is a left-hand thread screw, meaning that you have to tighten it by turning it counterclockwise, which is the opposite of a normal screw. So that's something important to remember when you put this back together. If you try to tighten it by turning it clockwise like you normally would, it won't tighten down because the screw won't engage. Now the next thing we need to add to this is the click, which goes in this little hole back here. And that's going to be tricky to get that in there where it engages with the click spring. And I may have to do that off camera. If we look at the click, we can see that one side of it is flat, the top of it is, and the bottom part has several pins that stick down, so we need to make sure that the pins go down when we stick it in. I've got the click in, I've got it lined up and working now. The way this would work then is when you wind the watch, the crown wheel turns this way, the barrel wheel turns like this. And see how the click works, how it lets it go one direction but not the other. So that's working the way it should. The next thing we need to do now is install the pallet fork and the pallet bridge. And then after that we'll put in the drive wheels. There is a very important thing that I forgot to do earlier. When I first installed the barrel bridge, I should have put in the 3 screws that hold it in place. There are one right here, one right there, and one right there. So I need to put those in before we do anything else because that needs to be there. Right now the only thing holding the barrel bridge in place is the screw holding the barrel in place, and that's not good because the barrel bridge is actually supposed to be supporting this stuff. This isn't supposed to be supporting the barrel bridge, so I need to get those screws in place. And these are teeny little screws They're about 1.5 millimeters across. Oh, I lost it down there. I think I'm going to have to do these off camera so that I can look at it through a strong magnifier. Okay, they're in. So now the barrel bridge is all fully installed. All 3 screws are in place now.